Welcome to the Cocktail Guru Podcast,
a show about food, drink, and entertainment,
with a tight focus on the good life,
and all things delicious, luxurious, and fun.
I'm Jonathan Pogash, bartender, author, and the host of Cocktails The Grand Tour.
And I'm Jeffrey Pogash, wine and spirits professional, author, insatiable collector of culinary ephemera, and so people tell me, an engaging raconteur.
And my dad. Dad, you cannot stop talking about ASMR, and it just cracks me up.
Because that's my ultimate goal in life, is to become an ASMR artist.
This is a common. This is a common thread. If there are any ASMR artists out there, please do get in touch, because Dad needs stuff to do. He's finding it really hard to be at home all the time. It's true, right?
I need a breakout occupation of some sort.
Okay, this is ridiculous. So, I need a drink. I need a drink, and I happen to have some Devil's River rye whiskey right over here. What? Oh, do you have?
Yeah. Well,
look at that.
Strangely enough, I have a bottle of Devil's River rye whiskey here, and I've made one of my 2 or 3 favorite drinks in the world, a Manhattan, out of my Devil's Rye.
So good. I'm just going to pour.
Whiskey.
Hold on.
Devil's River rye whiskey.
Here's a little ASMR. Hold on one second.
It's luscious. It's delicious.
Okay, stop that.
It's very, very relaxing.
Oh, jeez. All right, so the cap fell, but that's okay. So this is out of this whiskey.
Okay, you don't drink the cap.
No, you don't drink the cap. This whiskey is out of San Antonio, Texas, and it's quite nice.
Wow.
Hold on, did you give it a taste with your old fashioned?
I've been sipping away. It's delicious.
I just have a big cube in here, which is how I really like to have my whiskey.
Yes, you have I have about 5 smaller cubes, and I have introduced 3 luscious cherries to my drink as well. But what makes this is the Devil's River rye whiskey. It's just luscious. It works so well. The sweet vermouth and the rye blend beautifully together. So I'm enjoying this thoroughly.
It's tasty, and it's luscious. Having the whiskey is in honor of our next guest, because she happens to reside in the grand old state of Texas. Dad, I think you want to do this intro.
Well, sure, because our next guest has the kind of career that I was hoping to have. I even started studying it in college. She is a high-profile news anchor, and as you can see if you are watching on YouTube, which I hope you are, she is a true beauty queen, truly. Aww. And so far, the very first beauty queen to be interviewed on the Cocktail Guru podcast. Kaitlin Monte.
This is true.
Kaitlin Monte is a native New Yorker. In fact, she was selected as Miss New York in 2011. That's incredible. I'm humbled to be speaking with her right now. And shortly thereafter, she competed in the 85th Miss America pageant. 2012 Miss America pageant, which I think was actually held in 2011, but it's called the 2012 Miss America pageant, an event that is near and dear to my heart and to those of us who reside in the great state of New Jersey. But the competition that Kaitlin competed in was held in Las Vegas that particular year. I think we're back in New Jersey now. I'm not quite sure. It's kind of on and off, but we in New Jersey revere the Miss America pageant. And she was, well, we're going to get to that later, I think.
Yeah, let's bring Kaitlin on.
We have a lot of things to talk about. So welcome, Kaitlin. I don't know where to begin. I'm just very excited.
Oh, it's great to be here with you guys. It's great to, it's interesting to hear the intro and think back 2011 and realize that was 10 years.
Yes.
Kind of crazy.
Yes. And that's exactly when my second career began 10 years ago, which is very hard to believe. My third career.
Kaitlin, yes. Before we continue on, we have a question that we always ask our guests on the Cocktail Guru podcast. What is your desert island cocktail? So like a stranded on a desert island cocktail.
Or drink. It doesn't have to be a cocktail. It can be a drink.
I might go for a French 75 because it would be sort of celebratory and festive and elegant. You know, probably I should bring something a little harder than that, but I think that would go well with the sunshine.
Wow, that's a nice one. That's a really nice cocktail.
Yeah, you like that?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
We had that at our wedding. It was a huge hit. People didn't really know necessarily what they were having, and they're like, "Gosh, this goes down so easy." I said, "Okay, easy there, partners."
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, you
are
are
with our whiskey tasting.
Did you have that at you had that at your wedding? A whiskey tasting too?
I had a Scotch tasting, actually, single malt.
You did?
Yeah. So I kept interrupting the dancing because I would see anyone over at the bar looking at the Scotches and not really sure, and I would run over and walk them through. We started with the Glenmorangie to get them used to sort of the simple, basic, non-peaty, and then we went all the way up to some really peaty, smoky Scotches, and it really made for a good party once I had people sipping a couple of Scotches at a time.
Fantastic. And you did an interview once with my friend from Glenmorangie, David Blackmore.
He's great.
Very old, dear colleague of mine.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Yeah, he taught me, he was part of my journey to becoming an appreciator of single malts.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody can do it, David can.
For sure.
But let's get back to you, Kaitlin.
Okay.
You are from the town of Pittsford, New York.
Yes.
I know upstate New York, but I don't know Pittsburgh. I know it's very cold.
Yeah, yes. It's positions right between Buffalo and Syracuse. Lake effect snow is sort of a culture up there. It's sort of what we do all year is battle the snow. When I was growing up, they wouldn't cancel school unless it was so cold the buses wouldn't start. And it was not uncommon to get 3 feet of snow overnight, and they would expect you to go, get out the door the next morning.
School was open. Yes.
Yeah. Thus, I moved almost as far as you can possibly go in terms of the South, down here in Houston, Texas, where the worst thing I have to scrape off my windshield is sunshine, which I don't.
Except for February of 2021.
That was really
I saw your reporting on that subject, and it was
to see Houston freeze, and for me to think, well, we've dealt with freezes, but it's totally different down here. I mean, we don't go through that. That was wild. Yeah, needed some good strong whiskey then.
When you grew up, or as you were growing up, were you in a household? Now, I know a lot of people who have an appreciation for alcoholic beverages in their adulthood got an introduction to it as a child, not imbibing, but maybe you made a martini for your parents or your grandparents, or that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah. Jeffrey, much like you, my father enjoys a good Manhattan. He would always, when we went out for restaurants, he would always order a Manhattan up. And that's the first thing that I knew how to order at a bar. And unfortunately, the first bar I ever went to of age was not the kind of bar that made Manhattans up. I had to learn that some places are more likely to do them than others. But my dad was very big into very strong booze-forward drinks. And that's where, having everyone kind of goes through everything. And I've landed as someone who likes to have a very strong boozy drink, neat, slow sipping that. So I would give the credit to my father for being the model of a good cocktail for me.
Nice. Spirit
like
forward.
My father was.
Spirit forward.
Spirit forward.
Spirit forward.
Yes, that's right, Dad.
So.
Grandpa, what did Grandpa drink? He drank whiskey on the rocks.
He drank martinis. He came home every evening at 6:29 p.m. on the dot.
Isn't that exactly the time that Jonathan was born?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was the time Jonathan was born. Good memory, Kaitlin.
All right, everybody.
You weren't around at the time, but you heard the story.
We go back like half an hour,
Kaitlin knows at this point the exact time when Jonathan Pogash.
It's my job to know. I'm a news anchor.
Was born.
Exactly. Time for dinner, Jonathan. Yes, my father made martinis every evening.
My grandfather used to do gin martinis too. Beefeaters, yeah. With the onions in there.
We had Beefeater on the bar. We had a built-in bar in our den, and we had Beefeater, Tanqueray, and at least one or two others as well, but mostly Beefeater and Tanqueray.
When I was younger, I mentally would read it as Beefeaters, and it took me years to mentally put it straight in my head. Yes. So sometimes I have a bad habit of still wanting to call it that. It's a little more fun to say that way, I think.
Well, it took me years to realize what a Beefeater was, but then I went to London and found out.
There you go.
Yes. Right. But before that, well, as you were growing up and as you were maturing through high school, you decided to go to college, and you went to the University of Tampa, did you not?
Yes, I did.
Which is one of the schools I was going to go to.
Were you really?
I was thinking about it.
A lot of people think of USF, and they don't think of University of Tampa. It's a smaller school there compared to USF, at least. So yeah, after my sophomore year of high school, I looked at my mom and I asked her, "Can I just go to college?" And she looked at me, sort of gave me a look and said, "Well, I guess if you can get in." So I applied. I actually started at a school called Clarkson University, which was way up north. Like, New York has the bump all the way up north. It's like way up there at the top. And started for engineering, went in with a full semester's worth of college engineering credits under my belt, thanks to my high school, which gave us the opportunity to study some. And soon learned that I talked way too much, that I needed to find a career that was built more around my talking. So University of Tampa, I went down for sunshine and loved it. I've been a Gulf Coast lover ever since, clearly.
Well, it was way too cold where you were, so you had to go to a place like Tampa, of course.
Yes. But that's where I met my husband, was my freshman year, but I was 17 when we met. And he's known me since I was, when you're 17, you're too young to craft who you are. You just are who you are.
Yeah.
It's nice to be with someone who kind of knows you. Yeah, like your dad, Jonathan, knows you from before you started to become Jonathan the man. He's still, as I saw you guys chatting before the show. It's pretty great.
That's right.
Oh, thanks. Now,
Jonathan the man.
So you met your husband in college, and were you guys together since then, or did you kind of reconnect later on?
Reconnected in New York City. Yeah. It was actually during my Miss New York year that I was working with a nonprofit that we had launched that was doing work in a bunch of schools, and we wanted a website, and my husband works in tech. And so I said, I know a guy who does websites. And we met up, and sort of that was 10 years ago, and happily ever after ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you were in New York, you did some television work.
I did.
News broadcasting or
a little bit. Yeah. So he was a big part of that. I got started doing, actually my first thing on camera was New Year's Eve in Times Square, where they had the first video live stream of New Year's Eve in Times Square. And it wasn't produced by Dick Clark or any of those. It's produced by the Times Square Alliance. So they hired, I think it was 4 or 6 of us to be hosts. They had all these rehearsals, and they said, we're going to be live for 6 hours straight, from the ball going up to the ball coming down. Wow. And we were going to interview the people who made the ball. We're going to be inside the Hard Rock here and there. And I remember within 2 minutes of it starting, the plan went out the window. The script, we had everything scheduled, and they just said, I don't know, just go live, just talk. So for 6 hours straight, we were just tap dancing in the streets, talking to whoever, going off the cuff. Now, my background was in improv. I studied at UCB in New York.
Wait a minute, you did? Yeah. So did I.
Well, there we go. No wonder we get along. Yeah. Oh, I loved it. So for me, talking off the cuff, I was like, oh, this is great. So my husband is the one who helped me build a career out of it, because after that, after Miss New York, I took a class in New York. There was TV hosting, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know, find a job, I suppose. Would anyone pay me to talk to a camera? And one of the agents in the class said, hey, I've got a crazy idea, but I want you to go to 30 Rock tomorrow, like NBC. I said, okay. And I figured they'll never hire me. Why would they, right? There's people who've worked for years to try to get to New York. So I just went in, was like, I'll just be a nice person, and they'll just be like, oh, well, she's not right, but at least she was nice. And I got it. And that's been the story of every interview I've gone to since. And my husband's been the one who, when I did SNY with the Mets, or for the Mets, for SNY, I did Mets Insider, which was awesome. But I was not a sports person going into it. So my husband was the one who stayed up with me all night, drilling me on the press releases, drilling me on baseball to make sure that I didn't say anything that would embarrass me in the interview. And same with traffic. We had a big chalkboard wall when I got called to audition to be a traffic anchor. And we drew a map of all the roads in New York City, all the major roads from the big ones, and started working our way down. And I just studied it. And so my poor husband's like pointing to the wall, saying, "What's that? Long Island Expressway. What's that?" And, trying to help me study. And so he's been there every step of helping me, which when you're in this industry in news, the schedules are always strange. Not just news, broadcast in general, schedules can be strange. You need a partner who's really down with it. And as you know, Jonathan, you and I met on a TV set at NBC. And so the schedules, the travel, it can all be a little overwhelming and wild. So it's great to have a great partner in all of it.
And at WNBC, you hosted the interactive trivia segment.
That's still my favorite thing I've ever done.
Yes, because I even called in once.
Did you?
I did.
You did?
Wasn't it so fun?
I did. I was watching upstairs in the bedroom, and I decided, I'll call. I know the answer. I'll call.
There you go. And that was back in the day before we did, that was 10 plus years ago where people weren't doing as much interactive dual screen. So it was great. But fresh off my improv training, I said, I can chat with people for a 10-minute live show. Sure. And that was my start.
Now I briefly want to go back to the improv, just because I have that connection too, and it was a huge part of my life when I was living in New York, trying to be an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So I took classes.
Know that, Jonathan.
Oh yes, it is true. That's why I moved to New York.
That's why he's doing what he does today.
Excellent. That's why he's so great.
He's a bartender.
There we go.
But when I moved to New York, I started taking classes at UCB. This was like probably 2002 to 2004. And I remember going, I think you probably, did you take classes later, like 2000? Yeah,
closer to 2012 might have been when I was like full in there. I'm trying to remember when I took the first one, but later on.
And I remember going to the shows. I don't know if they still had those. ASCAT.
In the basement. Yep.
In the basement. Yep. And when I was there, it was Horatio Sands, Amy Poehler. It was all of these amazing SNL people. And it was just mind-blowing and watching them work. And I remember taking classes. Actually, do you know a guy called Jason Mantzoukas? He's an actor, comedian, and he was a teacher at UCB. And he taught me. And I remember specific classes where it's long form improv. That's what you're learning. For those people who don't really know, it's was some of the hardest stuff I've ever done in my entire life. And really, they push you, and you start to do a scene. And if it's not working, they said, keep going. You'll get there. Just keep going. Don't stop. It's just amazing.
I found it was a lot like therapy. I saw people would get to a point where it's not, people think of improv, they think of comedy, they think of, whose line is it anyway? Yeah. But this was potentially dramatic scenes, if that's where it went. But it was like therapy because you would have people in the class who, let's say you walked out and you're pretending to be doctors and you say, "Oh, doctor, we have to save the patient. We have only a minute left." And someone says, "But doctor, all we have are these instruments, musical instruments. These are the wrong instruments." And you would see someone say, "Actually, that's not true. I always bring my supplies." And they would stop and say, "Why are you insulted by them suggesting you brought the wrong," like someone's personal fear of being insulted or made to appear like they didn't know what they were doing would manifest itself in the performance. And a lot of it was watching people go through the therapy and the realization of things that they had personal issues with, or even personal traumas that would manifest themselves in the performance. And to see people heal that and move through that, maybe not entirely, but in a meaningful way with a group of people who were also being vulnerable, was really, really powerful. And I'll never forget the advice I got in my 101 class. My teacher looked at us and said, "You have homework tonight. You and all the classmates, all of you," said, "You guys need to go out and get drunk together." Said, "Because you will function far better together if you have let all your guards down and spent time together." Which, we got drinks, we went to the basement, watched shows, drank beers.
Did you go to, was it when the studio was on, it was like 23rd Street or something like that?
In Chelsea?
Yeah, in Chelsea.
Yes.
And there was a bar downstairs called Trailer Park. Is that what it was? Do you remember that
I don't
place?
remember Trailer
Anyway, I
Park.
remember that place.
I don't know. We would always go to karaoke, and
Oh yeah,
that would always turn wild for sure. But it was great. It was a great experience. I still, to this day, when people ask me, how do I get into your industry? I tell them to take an improv class. Because if you can talk comfortably and trust your own mind to compartmentalize information, store it, bring it back later, that's 90% of what, at least being a TV anchor is. Because when Hurricane Harvey hit, it was my second week as an anchor here in Houston. And they had said, you don't have a formal background in this. You've only been a reporter for a short time. How are you going to handle breaking news? But I knew that my training at UCB was take information, put it in your head, find the connections, and be able to pull it back. And I still tell people, it's one of the best educations I ever got was at UCB. And any improv class, I think, would benefit anyone who's trying to move forward in any career. It's great. It's great stuff.
And speaking of breaking news, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We all know how hot the espresso martini is these days. Well, why not include a quality vodka to up your espresso martini game? Van Gogh Double Espresso Vodka, distilled 3 times with high-quality espresso beans and natural cane sugar, is all you need to add some liquid art to your repertoire. Follow @Van Gogh Vodka on Instagram and #GoCreate. Van Gogh Vodka is imported by 375 Park Ave Spirits, Louisville, Kentucky. Please enjoy responsibly. And now we're back. Okay, we were talking about UCB, but Dad, I know you wanted to possibly bring up the, what did you want to bring up?
Well, there were just several things I wanted to bring up just to show everyone how wonderful a human being Kaitlin is.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I mean, she really is. I've been studying her and watching videos and learning about her life. And she's so young. She's done so much in a very short period of time.
Thank you.
And I know that in 2009, she joined the USO.
Yes.
Yes, performing for our troops.
Yes.
Following in the footsteps of Bob Hope, Marilyn Monroe, Joey Hetherington, and Martha Ray, among the dozens and dozens of
many,
others.
yeah. USO was
Superstars.
incredible.
Yeah,
that was a great formative experience because I was 20 years old when I got hired by USO, moved to New York. I actually lied in my interview. I will confess this now because the statute of limitations must be gone at this point. But they asked, well, do you live in New York City? I had seen the listing. I was still living in Tampa from college. And I'd seen the listing and I applied. And when I got there, they said, so do you live in New York? You're ready to go? And I said, oh, yeah, totally. Yep, ready to go. And then when they called me and they're like, great, you start on this date. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I got to move to New York. So I had to get my way up there somehow. And I was so excited that it was with USO. They were incredible. USO, for those who don't know, is the United Services Organization, and they provide the civilian connection to our troops. So it's not politically funded. It's not associated with the federal government or any political party. It's simply a means for the citizens to support the troops. So if you see a USO office in your town or at your airport, know that those are mostly volunteers. It's one of the most effective nonprofits. It's like 90 something cents to the dollar goes to programming because there's so many great volunteers. And then we were part of the official entertainment division. When I joined, it was just the New York City USO that had this show troupe. The show troupe has since expanded to represent the entire USO, but I got to travel all over the country, go to military bases. I've gotten flown in a Chinook out to a carrier that was on its way in for Fleet Week. We got to stay overnight on the ship.
Wow.
It was incredible, but really formative in the sense that at 20 years old, I was singing bedside at VA hospitals, which the USO doesn't generally work with veterans, but the show troupe did. And to be standing bedside and sing Andrew's Sisters songs in 3-part harmony to people who are bedridden, and to know that this is the first time in a long time they've heard these songs from their youth, and to see them crack a smile. Or I remember one of my girlfriends we used to go into the common room. They'd bring people in to sit or in a wheelchair, and we would perform for them. And sometimes you would see individuals in wheelchairs get up out of their chair and their nurses reach out for them. Like, what are you doing? But they're brought alive by the experience. And one gentleman who was dancing with one of my friends as we sang Apple Blossom Time, she was dancing with him and he looked at her and said, I just remembered what my wife looks like.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so those types of experiences made me so humble to see our military, both active and veterans, and to realize, no matter what we're dealing with, there's people who've done so much for us. It's incredible.
And I hope the USO is still thriving, because when I was growing up, everybody knew what the USO was.
Yeah.
And that's in large part because of Bob Hope. He was still around and very active. But now I fear there are very few people who even know about the organization.
People think it as of yesteryear, for sure. And a lot of our work was to help remind people that most active duty or recently veteran individuals, people who recently got out of the service, are not old men. They're in their late 20s, sometimes mid 20s, and they've already served for several years. And many of them have served front lines since we've recently had people deployed. So that was a lot of the mission, was going to events and advocating for our troops to remind people that every little thing we can do to support them means the world when they're overseas and dealing with so much, and then trying to come back. And did a lot. I had a pleasure of working with so many great organizations that help people come back and get back into civilian life once they are done with their service. And that's a whole journey that I wish there was more attention on that, but there's people doing amazing work there. And it was such an honor to be part of that.
Well, it's a good thing you had joined the USO, because then you had to move to New York, and then you became Miss New York State shortly thereafter.
Represent my home state.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the Miss America pageant. And I just wanted to mention, because this is important, you were the second runner-up in the Miss America pageant. But I happen to know you won the swimsuit fitness and lifestyle competition.
I did. I'm one of the last remaining lifestyle and fitness and swimwear competition winners alive, because they no longer have that category in Miss America. They've changed the system a lot. But for me, it was about trying to pay off school. I, at the time, was performing with USO and wasn't working in television yet. So I just needed a way to help pay my bills. And I said, well, if I do the pageant, maybe I could win some scholarship money, just a little. And when I won Miss New York, I said, oh, whoa. And then went to Miss America. It's funny. To this day, I call it the best and worst year of my life, because it was really wild. And there's a lot about it that was crazy, but it was the big launching year for me, where I got experiences and met people who it changed my life. But to go through the actual pageant, I wasn't one of those girls who grew up toddlers and tiaras. Yeah, I never thought I was like the Mickey Mouse t-shirt and hat backwards kid in school wearing skater shoes. So when someone introduced me to doing a pageant in my late teens, I said, well, I don't think this is going to work, but okay. I thought I would maybe learn all the secrets of the pretty girls, and ended up learning that there were some amazing women and there was a lot of money to be had. And so when I got involved to the point of going to Miss America, it was very interesting for me, because I was meeting women who this is something they'd worked for their whole lives. And it was awesome to get to see for them their dream coming true. And then for me to see the opportunities, it was cool. It was fascinating and terrifying and many things.
And you kind of just fell into it. You hadn't even really prepared.
Yeah. I mean, I had some angels in my corner, for sure, in the sense of some great people. The Miss New York organization at the time, the people who ran it, were some of the greatest people I've ever known. Like, they were at my wedding. They were some of the few people I still talk to from that corner of the world. But it was, everything's meant to be, right? Your path is laid out the day you were born, which is what I always tell people when they're competing. So the decision on this pageant was determined the day you were born. So stop stressing it and just relax. And the same goes for anything, right? If we want to be a successful podcaster, if we want to be a news anchor, the decision on that was determined the day we were born. So we just need to relax and go in and be a nice person.
That's what I tell Dad. That's what I tell Dad every time. I'm like, Dad, relax.
That's right.
If you want to be a successful podcaster, it was determined at your birth.
There you go. That seems pretty relaxed. There we go.
ASMR.
The ASMR path.
Oh, here we go again.
The day you were born.
Speaking of successful, Kaitlin, you were nominated for an Emmy Award in 2015. That's quite an honor.
Huge honor, especially because two of the other traffic anchors in New York were women who were huge mentors to me. Lauren Scala, in particular,
we know her well. Yeah.
Oh man, like what an incredible person! And when I got the trivia job at NBC, I was taking over for her as she was moving up in her career. And it's interesting, I didn't really even get to interact with her a whole ton. But there's people who they just are sort of your Marvel superhero. And they may never know it. I didn't really tell her that until later, and maybe I should have. Maybe I was too young to realize it. But one of those people who you watch and you follow and you say what they do just seems like the right path. And so it was fantastic to be honored and nominated next to her.
And that's where you and I met.
Yes.
Yep. Right. On the morning show.
Right. At WNBC.
That's right.
That's right. But KRIV in Houston. Wow. I love Houston.
You do?
Yes. It's one of my favorite cities. I used to go there quite a bit. I had some very dear friends who lived in Houston.
Oh, Houston's fantastic.
And I loved working there as well. I loved the restaurant industry, the wine and spirits industry. But you are being kept quite busy at KRIV. You're the anchor for 5 o'clock?
Right now I'm
9 o'clock
doing the 6, 9, and 10. Yeah, 6, 9, and 10 right now.
Holy cow.
And 6 and 10 are solo anchored. Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. They've given us such leeway to create a new product in the sense that they kind of let us challenge the norms, the Ron Burgundy types. They say, well, if you were to make a newscast you wanted to watch, what would it include? And we've gotten to do a lot of great stuff. I get to do a lot of tech coverage, which was something I did a bit of in New York and that I'm still passionate about now, is helping people understand the impact of technology and technological advancements. I think something like almost a quarter of the stock market is tech companies now. So it's important that people know what's going on. It's going to impact financially a lot of people. So it's great. I mean, we've got a great team. Houston's an incredible city. Man, like you come here, you knock on someone's door, you say, hey, I need something. There's not a person here that I've met in my path that won't say, how can I help? And so that's the motto, it seems.
But what really strikes me when I see your reporting is the compassion that you have when you're out in the field, the compassion that you have for all the people who have been hit by tragedy in some way. You can really empathize with them all. And you bring great comfort to them, I see, even while you're doing your job.
Thank you. I tie that right back to USO. I've had worked with some incredible women on the show troupe team who were just had the biggest hearts and still to this day are doing incredible work to serve others. So for me, it was always a place of service. And I'm always humbled when I don't know if I could, in the wake of tragedy, ever be so composed as some of these people who I have the opportunity to speak with and who share and help us understand pain and understand these moments that we hope we never find ourselves in. But in interviewing with us, sometimes people wonder, why do you talk to them? Well, because sometimes it's a beautiful opportunity to learn about how the human heart works. And I'm just so humbled that they would speak and that they're so strong and that they turn their tragedy into mission. And it's an incredible honor for me to get to do this.
Well, after watching you, I realized I made the right choice in not going into television.
Why do you say that?
Broadcasting, because it is so difficult. So difficult.
It's
I couldn't do the job that you do.
It's grueling.
But it's also made it's made a bit more difficult when one has family as well. I mean, for me at least, balancing out family with career and all of that. And you document it on, very openly on social media and all of that. And you have 2 little ones, and also you've been doing work at home. You've been broadcasting at home for a certain amount of time, and so it's a crazy balance, isn't it?
It's fascinating. I come from a big Italian family. So for me, as my grandfather always put it, glorious chaos is the norm. It's wonderful. It's chaos and you can't try to stop that, but it is glorious. And so my littlest, so I now have 3. My littlest is 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
3.
And so Henry is the youngest.
Henry is the little guy.
Born last year.
Yes, in October.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got just glorious chaos in our house all the time. But that's what life is about for me, is not career, it's family. And it's all been working towards putting myself in a position to have a beautiful family and be able to be around my parents. They've moved to Houston. They love it. They think they're on vacation every day after spending 20 years up in the Northeast. They're happy to be down south. So I mean, am I exhausted? Totally. Is the makeup helping hide that? Yes. And you just keep on going, because I know that it's just the reward of seeing them grow up and having them to watch is going to be amazing.
Well, it's not the makeup. You are naturally beautiful,
Well,
and
thank
you are
you.
glorious. And
You are too.
well, oh,
That's-
shucks. Thank you.
Dad,
Thank you very
Dad,
much.
you are
It was a pleasure having you on this broadcast.
You are beautiful too, Dad.
Well, thank you. And thanks for taking the time to do this. It's
Yes.
Sure.
incredible.
Thank you so much,
For
Kaitlin.
sure,
This has
Jonathan,
been
you're
amazing.
one of my first friends in the industry. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun watching your career grow as well.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
That does it for today's show. If you enjoy what we do, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also support the show with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Just click on the donate button at the top of our website and choose your donation amount. To learn more about future guests, visit www.thecocktailgurupodcast.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
The Cocktail Guru podcast is produced by First Reel Entertainment and distributed by EatsDrinksTV, a service of the Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection, and is available via Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, and wherever you listen to your favorite shows.